Hi, friends. It's Deanna Williston with Our Blooming Catholic Life. And because of you viewers, I knew about the new logo for the Secular Franciscan Order. And while I was on the website, I saw something else that I had not heard about yet. Have you heard about the International Day of Franciscan Solidarity? Not sure what it means? Me either. This came out on April 7th of 2025, and it said it was to be sent to every national council of the OFS as well as every national council of UFRA. I didn't hear about it. Maybe I just missed it. But I thought some of you might not have heard it as well, so I brought it on. I'll try and include a link to the English letter. It's just one page front and back. It's not very much here. It says, "Dear brothers and sisters, it's all grace. I would like to greet you with joy and hope today, when among the various realities that exist in the different places, we find ourselves to be obliged to live the gift of the vocation we've received, especially in our local fraternities, where we live day by day, our being secular Franciscans, and where we are striving to fulfill our mission to rebuild the Church. I come to you, brothers and sisters, having in my mind and heart the words of the Holy Father, Pope Francis, on the occasion of the Jubilee. Quote, in the heart of each person, hope dwells as the desire and expectation of good things to come, despite our not knowing what the future may bring. Spes non confutit, number 1. Precisely on the basis of being called to rebuild the Church and to carry out the actions that restore or strengthen that hope of all, the CIOFSS presidency has approved the establishment of the International Day of Secular Franciscan Solidarity. I did it that way because it's in all bold and indented on its own line. We are aware that solidarity must be practiced constantly, day by day and everywhere, but as an order we must consider that on the international level we have concrete and achievable activities that strengthen us to be a family and to be more supportive. The day will be held on November 17th of each year, the feast of St. Elizabeth of Hungary, patroness of the Secular Franciscan Order. Franciscan values of humility, service, detachment, charity, and help to the poor, the neediest, and those who suffer, are characterizing her life. The small translation error, I think. Talking about St. Elizabeth is a call to contemplate the concrete ways of charity and solidarity in her life, and her actions inspire and set an example. Therefore, we consider that we must promote solidarity not only as a means of assistance, but also as a part of the formation that leads to conversion and the strengthening of unity, integration, collaboration, and participation in our OFS and UFRA fraternities, as well as being a living witness of hope in a society that is becoming more and more indifferent. The day will be held at all levels in different but always concrete ways. We are called to take concrete steps considering the diversity of realities. The purpose is to raise funds or resources that help the concrete needs in our local, regional, national OFS and UFRA fraternities. These concrete steps can be collecting food or medicine, giving alms, visiting the sick, the elderly, those in need. It is important to highlight that this day has been established to meet those in various difficulties inside and around our fraternities present in the various parts of the world. Therefore, it will be used to get closer to the brothers in difficulty of the same fraternity itself or those in a neighboring fraternity of the higher level. The main goal is not to be effective in accumulating resources, but the main goal is to help in any form to bring hope with concrete actions. Transparency is also important, so it is recommended to implement the pertinent records of the actions to keep clear control of what is collected and how it is used. In this way, we will avoid confusion, misunderstandings, or comments that affect fraternal life. Dear brothers, Pope Francis, in the Bull of Indication for the Jubilee of 2025, said, "Hope is born of love and based on the love springing from the pierced heart of Jesus upon the cross." Spes non confutit. Number 3. Let us bring hope with concrete actions. Let us become aware of the importance of charity in our lives, in our being Franciscans. Let us be an example of compassion and service, inspired also by the example of St. Elizabeth of Hungary. Finally, I would like to ask you to support us by making known the International Day of Secular Franciscan Solidarity and to guide and animate the brothers and sisters for its proper development. May our Blessed Mother, the Virgin Mary, and her faithful maternal example assist us and embrace us day by day. With fraternal greetings, Tibor Kauser, OFS General Minister. And look, here's the new logo used. They've gone slanty. Wait, was this before it was even? It wasn't. The logo was not released to the public until May 15th. This was like a little preview. Okay, if we use this, it's a little better, except I don't know why it's on its side. Can we just, I guess it was supposed to look like a stamp or signature. This is not so bad. Okay, compare this. If we straighten it out, compare this to this one. Okay, I would again make the tau the prominent thing and color it in. Do I have a pencil around here? I bet I do. Look, I can fix it. Hold on. See what you think of the colored in one. I'm just going to do a little rough coloring. Ta-da! See, doesn't that look, that makes it look, I don't know, that really draws your eye to the tau itself. So this version is not the worst version ever. It does not say Franciscan or Jesus. It is kind of, maybe looks like a cross, maybe looks like the Eucharist. It's not very explicit, right? This one, CFRs. They went very symbolic. They wrote Jesus right in the middle. You're not missing Jesus. And in fact, in this whole letter, I did not hear anything about Jesus until back here. Back here, the name of Jesus once. I thought that was odd. Saint Francis is the word Saint Francis in here. I'm really jumping around. Saint Elizabeth comes in on several paragraphs down. I really don't even see. Wait, is Saint Francis really not here? Okay, Mary made it in the closing. Mary made it in the closing. That's really great. It says Franciscans a lot. I don't see it. I don't see anything about Saint Francis. There's nothing explicitly St. Francis. Again, this could be translation because there were a couple times you saw there were extra words or actually there were letters missing and I just added them in for you. So there's definitely, it's not a perfect translation. So there could be times that maybe where it says Franciscan, it should have said St. Francis. I can't tell. But yeah, Jesus is only mentioned once on the back. And what does that sentence say? Hope is born of love and based on the love springing from the pierced heart of Jesus upon the cross. Very powerful, that. And so I think we need to look at that. If we are walking in the footsteps of St. Francis, who walked in the footsteps of Christ and became so like Christ that he bore the stigmata, what does that mean for the charity within our fraternities even? I know when you research and read writings of secular Franciscans, even in like the 40s and 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s, they did a lot of charitable works for other people in their fraternity. If somebody was sick, they showed up with a meal, things like that. Very, concrete actions. I know that doesn't happen as much. And you did hear before people, like if somebody couldn't make their rent, somebody got older and needed some help financially, that help did come from the fraternity. Now, you don't hear of that often now. The only ways I really hear about help within the fraternity, and this is just my fraternity, I don't hear, okay, I hear about some others. This is common. It may be some monetary help or reimbursements for travel. If somebody from the regional needs to come to your local, they are reimbursed. They may be paid a stipend for their time that day. That's the most common thing. If somebody dies, we very often plant a tree or in their name or make a donation to plant a tree in their name. As to helping people who are living, again, that may come about when you have like a regional or local retreat. You may pay for officers to go to that. I don't hear a lot of help. I don't know that people in my fraternity are asking for monetary help. But that's an interesting concept to have the money in our budgets. That is always a contention, isn't it? Should we have money? So should an emergency arise, we have it. We need the money to pay our fair share to the fraternity levels above us, right? But also, should we have money in our budgets? Accrue it so that if a disaster does happen, either to someone in our local fraternity, unexpected hospital bill that they can't cover, they're out of work, childcare, that would encourage maybe some younger families to come if they knew we had some sort of safety net involved in fraternal life, or some kind of emergency local, like a local flood or something, or even in our state or country, right, that we could send money to, or if we wanted to donate to the Well for Africa project. That is a CIOFS and UFRA project, um, bringing bringing safe, reliable water to people in Africa where there are secular Franciscans on the ground who can make sure it's safe and reliable. Um, so I don't know. So the other thing is, do you let your budget get big in case of an emergency, then you have a budget and you can help out? Or do you wait for an emergency and do a fund drive? Or what happens, I know, in my fraternity is when the budget starts to creep up, people get very uncomfortable and they say, we're not here to make money. And immediately that money is dispersed into charities. That's not the worst thing ever, but then that leaves us without money should an emergency arise. And that sounds fine and dandy. But like with COVID, when that happened, a lot of our members moved. A lot of people could move away if they had jobs because then they could telework. So they might have moved away for that. They moved away for retirement communities. Some of them became sick or ill or aged and moved to more of the inactive lists. And some outright left the order, let's be honest. And so now we had a small amount of savings and not so many people to put back into the pool. And so now if there's an emergency in our fraternity or local community, we would have to do some sort of fundraising. And that could be why they've part of what they've come up with, this Feast of St. Elizabeth of Hungary. It's definitely not the worst idea. In America, it is awful timing. It's right before Thanksgiving, so it could be beautiful, but a lot of us are already helping out in soup kitchens and fundraising so that people get meals for Thanksgiving. So it's not great. It's in the middle of all the Franciscan holidays, right? That we have early in the month and right before Thanksgiving. So in America, this is going to be awkward, but it could be a way to help out some of those Thanksgiving feasts as a fraternity. Again, the timing is awkward because we've already been celebrating Franciscan All Saints and All Souls, St. Francis's feast day, and the Transitus. So it's really going to be pulling us away from our families again unless we drag them in. They really want to have concrete things. I do wonder if in America they may shift this to a different day. Again, November for us is November, December, January can be hard months to get people to come out. In my fraternity, we don't live very close to one another. We meet at a local friary, and so people are coming from greater distances in order to have access to those friars. So we really don't live in the same communities at all. So that's one thing that makes this difficult. Then whose community are you going to give the money to? Whose community will you be working at? Is it where you meet? Is it where one of the members live? And also, November is a snowy time of year, and we don't get as many people coming out those times of year. And in fact, November is when we normally have our Mass for the Dead, and it's normally right around November 17th. So that could be our well, we'd have to get rid of our Mass for the Dead in order to also to celebrate this instead in November. And so this is going to take some imagination, some working. So I'm very excited to start hearing from you all how you're going to implement this in your local fraternity, how in your regional fraternities. And they're saying that they want to hear from every level of fraternity. How are we going to do this? What are we going to do and how are we going to do it? Now, the friary we meet at does have a farm, a nice organic farm, and all the food from it goes to support this wonderful resource in Baltimore City where it helps people get IDs and license. Well, it helps you get the paperwork that you need to get your driver's license. It may help you with some education. It helps get kids books. It helps connect you to various resources, both government, assistance programs and whatnot, as well as has a soup kitchen with good, honestly healthy meals, not a bunch of cans of soup or high salt, high fat meals. These are healthy meals. Has food distribution days. Again, very healthy food is distributed. Has clothing drives. Has resources for young mothers. So it's a really great resource. And so we may end up spilling into that. And that is the big city near us, but that's not the city we're located in. And I don't know that any of our members actually live in that city. So if we're keeping it solidary and we're keeping it local, what is that going to look like? Is it going to be a work day? A lot of our members are older and really work days are beyond them. But I know some fraternities are full of young families and they're going to do something completely different. So I think that we can really inspire people here. I'm fairly disappointed that this document doesn't talk more about Jesus and St. Francis and really reflecting on what that looked like in their lives and how they gave back to their community. If we're walking in their footsteps, let's look at what that looked like. It may look like Jesus feeding the 5,000, right? Can we feed 5,000? Yes, we can. Like, I don't know what this is going to look like. And hear about different things that St. Francis did. Are we going to save little lambs from the slaughter? Oh, we could pardon a whole bunch of turkeys. Maybe we will save a whole bunch of turkeys from the Thanksgiving table and set up a turkey egg farm. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out here. That was a pretty wacky one. Turkeys don't, in particular, remind me of our Lord. That's why he saved the lamb. That's where I was going with that. Because the lamb just reminded him of the innocence, the Paschal lamb being Jesus. That's why we know he rescued lambs. I don't know what this is going to look like. I'm just really spitballing. I just found this a few hours ago, and as you can tell, I'm pretty excited about it. But also, really, hey, we're in June. This has to be implemented in November. Let's start thinking, folks. Let's brainstorm. I'm going to need your help. I'm not on a fraternity council. As a spiritual director for Franciscans, I really don't have any business being on council. Um, so I'm not on the council. I'm not privy to this. I don't know what's going on. I'm very curious. We actually have elections now. We have elections in June. We have elections in 2 weeks. So this is going to have to be taken up immediately by the new council. Whew, that's exciting. And I know, oh, sorry, that's our other one on the logo. A young gentleman in our fraternity is always helping us get items with logo, our swag, our Franciscan swag. And so I'm going to have to see what we can do with that, see what he's interested in helping us get. And maybe that's part of our raising our funds. That could be, hey, buy a gift for the secular Franciscan in your life. Buy them a hoodie and a tote bag and a necklace. It's pretty funny, but I'm just trying to spitball ideas. What are we going to do for a fundraiser, and what are we going to do for a work day? And the point is to do it together as a fraternity, to really unite ourselves together as a fraternity, as well as with our local communities. And we really need to go back. I wish there'd been some references to moments more in the life of St. Francis. And it does mention St. Elizabeth of Hungary, so maybe I'll go back and do some more reading on her and exactly what she did and see if that will inspire any of us. That's a great idea. So I'm going to go back to you, just throwing this idea at you, and we'll get back on another day that starts with the letter T. God bless, friends.